Welcome everyone to today's training. I appreciate you guys coming out on this afternoon. My name is Bree and I'll be your trainer today. I've been training you guys for actually a little while now, and if you recognize me, welcome back. And if you are new here, nice to meet you. Now, I do want to direct you guys to the Q&A. If you guys do have questions throughout the event, please feel free to ask there. You will notice that you can't come off mute or turn your cameras on. The only way to communicate with me is through the Q&A, but I do have my moderator here, and I will also be stopping periodically throughout the training to help answer your questions. If you need to access our closed captioning, you will see the double C's here in the bottom right. And if you need to adjust the text size and color, you can click on the settings cog here. And you'll also be able to adjust the playback speed. Alrighty. So we're going to actually cover two topics today. We're going to cover Microsoft Forms, and we're also going to cover Microsoft Lists. At the start of this training, we are going to go over forms first. So what we're looking at here is just a basic overview of our agenda for forms. And we're going to learn about the navigation and functionality of forms. Forms is actually very, very easy to use. So there shouldn't be any, serious learning curve or anything like that here today. We're going to create some forms and quizzes. Now, it says creating surveys. It's all really the same thing. The quiz, the survey, they're really all the same thing, just kind of laid out differently. And then we'll go and look at how to manage those and analyze those, okay? So for starters, let's talk about, what forms really is. As it says here, Forms is a very simple and lightweight tool that lets you quickly create a form, collect responses, and view charts and data to help visualize those responses. And all of that happens in real time. You can use Microsoft Forms and other products like Sway, OneNote, the web, PowerPoints, Teams, SharePoint sites. You can send them through, QR codes. Forms are very easy to distribute and use, and you can use them to collect feedback both in your organization and outside of your organization. So Forms is really easy to use because you can customize forms that have the look and feel that you want, add custom themes to kind of drive better engagement. There's question branching available, so you can customize the flow of the form based on the responses to a question. And then Forms also looks really, really good on mobile and desktop. Very, very intuitive interface. It's very mobile responsive. And before you actually send out your form, you're able to easily preview what that form is going to look like in both experiences. So you can see what it's going to look like in mobile and see what it's going to look like on the web app. Okay. And then also, it's part of making better decisions. Microsoft Forms will collect the data instantly from the form. And you can view the poll or quiz results as soon as they're submitted. And then in the responses tab, you get a great visual view of your data that you can break down the data by question or by respondent. And then you can also export that data to Excel so that it can be further analyzed. We'll cover all of that stuff today. So we're going to go ahead and switch into our demo tenant so that we can do a live demo of Forms. You may see my screen go dark for just a second. No worries. All I'm doing is actually switching to my demo tenant. Now I actually have lists open, but let's go ahead and let's open up a new tab. We'll close these other things and we'll leave lists open for later. Now you can get to your Office applications if you're using Edge and you're logged into your office account. So up here, I'm actually logged in as Alex Wilbur, which is the demo account that I'm going to be using today. You can always click on your app launcher and launch all of your Office applications, or you can go to portal.office.com and it will take you to the exact same page. Now, forms will usually be here in this list on this left rail. If you don't see it, you again can click on your app launcher and it'll usually be here. Or if you don't see it there, you can go to all apps and this will show your full list of apps. However, forms is usually always right in that first list. So we'll click on that. So when you first get to forms, this is the view that you will see. As you can see, you have the option to create a new form. If you click on this drop down, you'll be able to create a new quiz. Again, they're really not much different. One just kind of allows for like some mathematic type of questions, but they really function the same. Here you'll see any recent forms that you've created. This was a form that I created this morning during another training. It does give you a little preview information of how many responses it has so far. Pinned, I did go ahead and pin this form as well. So any forms that you want to be able to access frequently, I would recommend pinning them. It's almost like having it set up as a favorites, just so you can quickly, get to them, especially if you need to view these responses daily. And if you have quite a bit of forms that you have created, some may be older than others, you can pin the most current ones that you're most concerned about. Shared with me, we don't have any right now, but let's say someone else on your team has created a form and they have shared access with you. You are not the owner of that form, but you do have access, which typically means you can see the form responses or interact with the form in some capacity. So those will live here. And of course, you have filtering, which we don't have much to filter through. And then you can choose to view them in a tile view versus the list view. List view versus tile view. So maybe you just want to see a list of your forms rather than the big squares that we see now. Here you'll see groups. So we don't have any forms in these groups, but these are actually just other teams and SharePoint sites that this demo account belongs to. They don't currently have any forms, but you'll be able to see here if there are forms that exist within these teams that you belong to. And of course, all my forms are going to show all the forms that you have created, as well as any forms that you have deleted. So you can come here and restore those forms if you need to, and they'll live here. I'm not sure if the 90-day hard delete applies here. Typically, when you delete things from SharePoint or anything that is kind of incorporated into M365, there's usually a 90-day period where it can be restored. And then after that 90-day period, it usually goes into a permanent delete stage. I am actually not 100% sure if Forms has that same grace period or if they remain in a restorable state. My guess is that the 90 days probably also applies here as well, but I don't have a definite answer for that. Okay. So I'm going to assume, I'm going to check Q&A. I don't think we probably have any questions right now, but nope, we don't. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. So let's go ahead and create a new form. All right. So when you go to create a new form, this is what it looks like. It's pretty blank. There's not much to it. You have your questions tab. This is where you will build out your form and give it a title. So let's go ahead and first give this a title. So I'm just going to give this something simple, and we'll kind of come up with a theme as we go along. Here you have a description. Now, this is optional, but you could always provide a description for what this form is for, especially if you are, sending it maybe to external contacts. Maybe this is some type of intake form, or you need to gather some type of information or consent from them. You can put a just brief description of what they are expected to do with this form, or why or what the purpose is that they may be receiving this form. Okay. So we've given it a name. We'll come back to the other things here in a second. And then you have your response tab. So we haven't collected any responses yet, but once we do, we will get some data here, which shows how many responses we currently have, what was the average time that this form took to complete, and the status. So you can deactivate a form without deleting it. So maybe you are only collecting feedback for something once a quarter, rather than having that survey be live and constantly collecting responses. You can deactivate it for a certain period of time and then reactivate it if necessary. And we'll talk more about how to do that here in a second. Okay, so here you have a preview. Again, we haven't built our form yet. You'll see exactly what your form looks like when you get ready to, or what it will look like to the recipient once you send it out. And themes and sharing features. So before we go through all this, let's go ahead and start building out our form, and then we'll come back to these portions and kind of demonstrate those areas. So we've given our form a name. You'll see here you can also give this image. Now it is connected through Bing, but you can also upload images from your OneDrive or upload them from your desktop. If I do a simple search and I search OSU, I'm sure I can find something useful to use. I mean, this one's kind of interesting, but we'll just go with that just because it looks kind of fun. And it will add an image to this. Let's see. Doesn't like that file type. So we'll just go with this one, see if that works. Okay, so as you can see, it just adds an image. This is not always necessary, but you can also add the alternative text. This is helpful for screen readers so that they know what is in the image. It's a good accessibility practice to do that. But here you've got your title and your image to go with it. I won't enter a description just for the sake of time right now. But let's go ahead and click add a new question. So here where it says add new, this is where you will start building out your questions in the form. So right off the bat, we have a couple of different style questions that we can incorporate here. The first one being multiple choice. So this will be a question where it'll just have radio buttons as a response option. So I can say, let's see. We'll just kind of make up something. So we'll say, these will have nothing to do with anything, to be quite honest, but what is your favorite season? So we can have option 1 as fall. That happens to be my favorite season. Now, as you can see, it used some AI to auto-generate the rest of the responses for you. Now, depending on what you type, like yes or no, you will get these auto-generated responses to finish your questions. Now, you don't have to use these. You may have very specific, and you probably will in most cases, organization specific questions, but it's nice that you can actually have this auto complete the rest of your suggestions. These little boxes here that are popping up allow you to rearrange the order of the questions. Winter happens to be my least favorite. And of course, the little trash cans next to each response option allows you to delete that. You can add additional options by clicking Add Option. And we don't actually need that, so we'll delete it. And then you can add an other option, which we don't need that. Here you see you have the option to allow it to select multiple answers. So if we were to toggle that on, a person could choose both, winter and fall. As you can see, they switched from radio boxes to check boxes when we did that. But we won't accept multiple responses for right now. Then you'll also see the required. So you can make this question required, in which a red asterisk will appear next to it. I'm not sure why this keeps moving up every time. Probably because it's saving every time I do something. So you'll see as I make a change, it'll appear saving here at the top, and then it will actually save. So it is saving your progress as you go along. You don't need to worry about saving this form. It is going to auto save for you. So we'll go ahead and make this first question required. Here, if I want to copy this question, so maybe I want to duplicate this question, but I want to change the responses. This is kind of like a shortcut to questions that may be structured the same way, but you want to save a little bit of time from having to keep writing them over and over. But we don't actually need that for now. So let's go ahead. We've got our first question. You see the red asterisk there indicating that this is a required question. Let's go ahead and add a new one. Here we have our text option. And let me actually come back and check Q&A really quickly. So we have one question. Will you have the capability of knowing who responded? And on the flip side, have the option to make the questions anonymous when folks respond? Yes, we will cover that here in just a second. But yes, you will have the option to make it anonymous or capture the respondent's basically ID tag, especially if they're inside your organization. So for example, let's go ahead and make this question, what is your name? Or we'll say, we'll just say your name. Okay. So here we have this field. Now we have long answer toggled off because we don't need multiple lines of text. We just need one line here, and we want this to also be required. However, I think this might make sense for this to be the first question. So here with these arrows, I could actually move this question up by selecting this arrow, and now it has become the first question. So you can move questions around that way to rearrange the way you want your questions to appear. Now I can also make this question branch. I'm going to hold off on that until we get a few more questions built into here, but I can also add subtitles. So I can say, please enter first and last name according to what is on file with, I don't know. This is just a way to kind of provide extra directions, extra details. If you think this question might be a little bit more complex or confusing, this is just a way to add extra information about maybe how the question should be answered. Okay. Here where it says restrictions, you can say this value must be a number. It has to be equal to a certain thing. It needs to be, these are kind of like conditions. It needs to be between this and that. We won't worry about that right now. We don't need any restrictions on this. Okay. So now we'll go ahead and add another question. You'll see here we have a rating. So we'll say, how would you rate your performance this quarter? So you can choose to have this be levels and the symbols be a star. Now you can choose to go all the way up to 10 levels, or if you don't want stars, you can have numbers. So you can say on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate your performance this quarter? We can, of course, add a subtitle to that. We'll say 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. Just to give them, some more clarity. Here where it says label, you can actually provide labels. So you can say unsatisfactory, or we can say excellent. They know exactly sort of what the range is being measured by. Okay, so now we've got some labels provided here. So each question kind of has its own unique assets that you can add to it, but still pretty simple. Here we have a date range. So what is today's date? We don't actually need this subtitle for here. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And if we don't want this to be required, we don't have to leave this toggled on, but we'll leave it required for now. So what is today's date is pretty self-explanatory. Let's go ahead. Punctuation. So we've got through our main question formats. If we click on this drop down, we have even more. So we can also have a ranking. So you've probably seen questions on, like, I don't know, an exam where it says rank your most preferred, we'll say, which do you most prefer? Okay, so we'll say, which do you most prefer? We'll add a subtitle. Please rank in order of most preferred. Not sure why my computer is moving so slow. Preferred. And we'll say office, and then we'll say a hybrid option. I think that's probably something that most people are considering right now. And then as you see, the only other option for this is branching. So let's take a look before we move on about ways we can branch. So let's say we have this question. Actually, let's make that a multiple choice. Do you enjoy working here? We're going to move this question up a little bit. And we'll just say yes or no. Then when we add branching, when they answer this question, yes, then you want them to go to the next question. If they answer no, maybe we want to add a next. Let's do this first. Let's go back. And we want to add another question right beneath that. And it'll be text. And we'll say why, or we'll say why not. and we'll make that a long answer. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and add branching to this question. And we'll say if they say yes, they can go to the next question. But if they say no, let's take them to where it says why not. Because we want to know why they don't enjoy working here. If they say yes, it will simply ask them, actually, let's go back here. Let's have this question be above that so that it makes a little bit more sense. And then it'll ask them, if they say yes, it'll ask them, what do they prefer the most? Working from home, working at the office, or a hybrid option. Okay. So our branching is set up to do that. Let's continue on. Actually, let me check Q&A first. Is there an option to upload documents? Yes. So we're going to get to all of that. You don't understand how someone would answer the ranking. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate it to you when we actually do. We're going to actually submit this form, but essentially they would just move these options around based on what they prefer the most, and the form will actually collect that data and develop like a percentage or an average based on what people are likely to rank. So I'm going to show you all of this before, once we complete the different questions. I'm going to show you how to actually answer the form. Okay? But good question. So here we have a Likert. Now you've probably seen these before where it says, let's think of a question. Let's ask a question about productivity. So we can say, answer the following questions around, it's just being a little delayed for me. Productivity. I'm not sure why this is moving slow for me. Okay. So then you might have one question that says, I feel most productive at home. So these are actually more statements, but that's okay. We'll say answer the following statements. So you might say, strongly agree, and I know you guys have probably seen these before. Agree. Neutral. Disagree. And strongly disagree. Okay. And then you might have another question, something in the same thing, like I would be open to hybrid work. Oops. Okay. So those are Likerts. So you've seen these before. Now you can, of course, add additional options, but for the sake of time, we are going to leave it the way that it is. And then your only additional option here is subtitles and branching. We don't need a subtitle, although you might want to have one to explain how to properly answer this question. But a person would choose, where they most likely lie within these questions or these statements, I should say. Okay. Net Promoter Score. And let me check Q&A before I move on to this. All right. These are pretty common too. How likely are you able, or would you rate OSU to a friend? How likely are you to recommend this to a friend or colleague? I'll leave this like this. You can change these labels, 0 being not likely at all, and 10 being extremely likely. For the sake of time, we're just going to leave these the way that they are right now. And again, you just have branching or adding a subtitle. Now, let's say you want to add a new section, and we're going to come back to this file upload in a second. You want to add a new section. So essentially that's like adding another page to your form. Now, the reason why you want to do this is if your form is very long, you can create the same forms that you fill out the doctor office, they could make into a digital form like this. However, you don't want the form to just be one long, endless page. So you might want to have a different section that says section 2. We don't actually have to call it section 2, but we'll say this section is for documentation. Please upload any important Okay, so now this is basically the title of this section, the same way we have a title sort of for the whole form. Now we've got this other label that says section 1. That is essentially like page 1. And then this is page 2. And now we can add new questions. So for the person who is asking about an attachment, you can select file upload. So we can go ahead and you'll be a new folder created in the OneDrive. That'll be for you, the person who created the form. Files uploaded by the responder will be captured in this folder. And note that responder names and file details will automatically be recorded in the OneDrive. So this portion will, if you're requiring attachments, it is going to capture that information. So even if the rest of your form is anonymous, it is going to capture some information here. So we can say, please upload work from home request form or something. You can select the number of files that they can upload. So we can say 2. You can also select the file size limit, determine if it's going to be required or not, and also choose a file type. So we'll accept Word documents, we'll accept PDFs. Maybe we don't want any video or audio files, PowerPoint or Excel files right now. Okay, you might have another file type here, and maybe you're saying, please upload your team We'll do 1, we'll leave it at a gig. And this time we might be looking for, an Excel document here. Okay. So we pretty much gotten through all of our question types that we have available to us. Now, when you do a quiz, you do have, I think, 1 or 2 additional options, and that's just mathematical questions. But everything else is pretty much exactly the same. Now here, where it says theme, you can choose a nice background, or you can come and upload your own image. So for example, if we click image, we can use Bing. So let's say we go with this OSU background, if it has the right formatting. Nope, it doesn't like that file. Let's try this one. There we go. It likes that file, and then you can choose a theme color. Now you do need to have the hexadecimal color code for this. Like maybe you want to do a red. So let me just look up red hex color code. That's a bit bright. So we'll go with something a little less harsh on the eyes, like maybe this double C quad 0. And we'll put that color code in there. And now we've got this nice accent red. Okay. And as you can see, it does go across the entire theme, including for your responses too. Now, like I mentioned, you have some default ones. These actually change quite often, so they're not always the same. But if you don't feel like getting creative or anything, you can choose any of these default colors or make your own like we saw here. Now, before we actually submit a response, let's click on share and talk about what's back here. So right now, this is the link that you want to come and grab when you're ready to share your survey. Right now, it's set to only people inside of your organization can respond to this. So in other words, if we were going with, OSU, only people that work in OSU or have an OSU, domain attached, so-and-so at osu.edu, whatever, they're the only people that can respond to this survey. And if your organization has allowed, you can set it to anyone can respond, and that will allow people outside of your organization to respond. So for example, if this was supposed to be customer facing, it is disabled in my demo account. But if it is customer facing and you need clients or customers to fill that out, you could send this link to them and they should be able to do it. Specific people in my org, maybe this is only for your M365 group. So for example, I have a team here, Mark 18. This is like an actual team that we have in Teams. I only want the people in this group to be able to respond to this survey. Then I'm going to go ahead and put in that M365, or maybe this is only for, specific people. I'm going to go ahead and put in their specific names here. But right now we're going to leave it set to anyone in my organization can respond. I can send that as a link. Maybe at the end of a PowerPoint, I want to have a QR code that people can scan instead to take this survey on their mobile device. I can also embed this in, a SharePoint site, a web page, a Sway, or I can send it as an email, which is going to open up your default email app of choice, which is probably most likely going to be Outlook. Okay. Let me check Q&A really quick. I'm assuming, so I'm reading a question here. I'm assuming that if this is for OSU business, we need to use OSU approved colors. That's not a question that I can specifically answer. Maybe Mandy, you have an answer to that. I don't know that there's any reason why it has to be OSU approved colors.
We really force branding on things like this. You could, if you wanted to contact whoever your communications coordinator was for your area, for your department, and send it through their branding process, I'm certain they wouldn't have a problem with it. We just don't force that. Especially, I believe you guys are over at the Med Center. We have absolutely no control over there.
Alrighty, so there it is. You probably don't have to worry so much about being on brand, and especially if you're going to use these internally, you probably don't have to really stress about that too much. All right, so let's go ahead and move along. So here is a template. So let's say you have a form that you want to create for a quarterly assessment or something like that. You can actually set this up as a template so that you can have different forms for each quarter without having to rebuild this form over and over for each quarter. So if you uh, create a link here, it creates a duplicate of it. And maybe you want to share this with someone else. Maybe someone's like, I really love that form. I love this assessment form that you built to have, weekly conversations with your team. How can I get that form for my team? You can create a template and share this link to the template. That way they can change the colors, they can change some of the questions, and it will not affect yours whatsoever. And they also don't have to build the entire form from scratch. So if you want to share this with someone without them having access to your actual version, create a link to a duplicate, share that with them, and then they'll be able to create their own version of your same form. And then sharing to collaborate. So maybe you want to have other collaborators. So here you're sharing this link at the top for people to respond and to collect responses. But let's say you want other people to also be in charge of this form, be able to monitor it, be able to look at the responses. You can share a link to collaborate. So for example, if I click this link and I'm choosing people in my organization or only specific people. So for example, if I say Adele here, and I say Isaiah, then both Adele and Isaiah have the ability to see this exact same view. So they can see the responses, they can download the data, they can change information on the form because I have shared a collaboration link with them. Here where it says access, maybe I see that they have the ability to view and edit, but Isaiah no longer needs that access. I can delete him from this, and now I am the owner, but Adele still has view and edit rights to this form. Okay. Of course, I can choose everybody in my organization. I don't recommend that though, because that means if I share this to Adele and Adele shares it to John and John shares it to whatever, I have no idea of really tracking who's been coming in here and changing things about my form, and I won't have a way to limit that. So I recommend sharing collaborative links as specific people or groups. So you can do an M365 group. So again, I can do the Mark 8 group if I wanted to, if you don't want to sit here and name people one by one, especially if there are quite a few people. Let's see, it looks like we have another question. How can you share with a Teams group? I hope maybe what I just showed explains that, but I'll go into a few more extra things here in just a moment. Are you able to launch the quiz or form in the middle of a Teams meeting and share the results in real time? Yes and no. I'm not sure what you mean by launch it. Sharing the link, I mean, you're not able to use it as how do I put this? You can use it as a poll, but it's not going to be this form. So you can create polls with forms in a meeting, but that form, that poll is going to have to be specific to that meeting. If you want to share this form, the only thing you can do is drop the link or the QR code, and then people can respond during the meeting by clicking the link and it'll open up on their browser. Or if they scan the QR code with their phone, they can take it on their phone and the survey will collect responses in real time. But if you want to use it as a poll, you'll have to create a poll in that meeting and it will be specific to that meeting. But good question though. Good question. All right, so moving on to settings here. This is where you're actually going to set up, whether you want it to be anonymous, so on and so forth. So here, anyone can respond. We don't have that on. We have it set to only people in my org can respond. If you want this to be anonymous, you need to uncheck record name. Therefore, they could enter a phony name here, or you might not have a question like this, obviously, if you want your survey to be anonymous, but it will not record any detailed information as far as attaching that person's office license to the name. However, remember that caveat about the attachment questions. They will record information. We're going to leave this check for now. With that being said, if you only want to collect one response per person, meaning as long as they're signed into their office and they've answered the survey, signed into their account, which, I mean, depending on how we have it set up, they will be required to, that person can only respond one time. You can also set it to where only specific people in your organization can respond and set up those same things. We're going to leave it to this one here. Currently, your form is accepting responses. However, you can turn that off and that will deactivate your form, and they will receive a message and it'll say, this form is temporarily deactivated until next quarter. We will reopen form submissions on January 2nd, 2022. Whatever you wanted to say. But right now, we, of course, want to continue accepting responses. However, we can set a start and end date for when we want to automatically stop collecting responses so that we don't have to come in here and remember to uncheck accept responses. So, for example, our quarter started on July 1st. So from July 1st at, say, 12 a.m. and we will stop collecting responses on August 31st. Maybe we just want to take, a month or a two to finish, get some feedback about what happened last quarter. And then we have a certain time that we want to stop collecting responses. Okay, so after that, this form will no longer collect responses and it will close itself off. You can also put a custom message and say, thank you for sending your response. You have until this date, or, this form is no longer accepting responses, so and so, so forth. The progress bar, and we're actually going to turn that off. We're not going to worry about that right now. And we'll change this and we'll say, make something specific. Thank you for giving OSU your feedback. Greatly. And maybe you want to have something like, thank you for filling out this form. A person will contact you, or so-and-so will contact you within 5 to 7 business days, or, whatever message you want the recipient to see once they know their form has been submitted. Just letting them know maybe what will happen next, how long they should wait for a response, who to reach out to if they don't hear anything. You can put that kind of information here. The progress bar simply just lets them know what percentage of the form they have completed. So if this is a rather long form and it is several sections, aka pages, you might want to have a progress bar that says you are 25% of the way. You've completed 1 out of 3 pages or sections, and so on and so forth. If you want your questions to appear randomly each time, this is helpful for quizzes or surveys. You can have the questions be shuffled up. And you can also choose whether you want the recipients to get a receipt of their responses after they have submitted them, or you want to get an email notification every time a new survey is submitted. I recommend this just depending on what kind of survey it is or what kind of form it is. You may want to get an actual notification. Maybe you're taking volunteers, right? You're trying to get someone to sign up to volunteer for something. You probably want to get an email every time you do get a new volunteer, just so you could be aware of that. But if you are collecting survey responses over a set period of time, such as feedback, you might not want to get an email every time you get feedback, especially if this is just going to be an open open form that's always going to be available, like customer feedback. You don't want to get an email for that every time, but you have the option to turn that on here if you do. So we have it set up to any people in our organization can fill out the form. It is going to record their name, which technically we don't need this, but we can leave this here because you can always export this to Excel and you might want that data here anyways. Our form is currently accepting responses. We're going to show our progress bar. We have a custom thank you, and we want an email notification of each response. Okay. You do have different languages that you can make available in this form. There are tons of them. I'm not going to select any for right now, but if you do have, maybe this is going across multiple regions of your company, you can choose to have this become available in multiple languages. If you want to print your form, so let's say you want to actually have this form available in the office as well, guess what? You don't have to go into Word or something like that and create a whole other form just to have a printable version. You may have one that's available online and you may have one that's available right in the office. This is something you can print out and a person can go right through and answer those same questions. This one's going to be a little bit awkward, but they maybe can put a number or something like that next to their response when they rank here. But you can go ahead and print this form right out and you don't have to worry about recreating it some other way, and it's available to you. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the preview and actually answer our form now. So preview, this is exactly what it looks like on a computer to someone that you sent this form to. If we come up here to where it says mobile, this is what it looks like on a mobile device. You will lose that background image, obviously, just because there's just not enough screen real estate, but you do still get the red banner or whatever color scheme you chose. And if you did add an image here at the top, it will appear there. This is what your form will look like. When it's time to go to the next page, you're going to see that you're on page 1 of 2. Now we can't hit next because we haven't answered all of these required questions, but once we do that, we are free to go to the next page. Let's refresh this and get rid of that red. Now let's go ahead and answer these questions. We'll say Jane Doe. We'll say our favorite season is fall. We'll give myself a 10. By the way, there'll be a survey at the end of this training. 9s and 10s means we did a great job. I'll post a link to that at the end. Please feel free to take it. Today's date is the 27th. Now here's our branching question. So do we enjoy working here? So we'll say yes. And, oh, I think I got these backwards, but we'll say yes. And it's supposed to take you, oh, you know what? It did take me to the next question because why not is the next question. I should have moved why not underneath my ranking question so that it would only show that question instead of the next question, but why not happens to be the next question. So that's something, this one, the branching is, you need to think about it a little bit when you set it up. Always test it out too before you actually send out your survey. And then if I hit no, then I was supposed to actually go here, but I made this my next question. So that's why it appears that way. We'll leave it at yes. And I also made this required. So you want to make sure you set up the branching properly because it can be a little bit confusing if you don't set it up correctly. So we're just going to write test. And then for the person that asked, how does the ranking work? You will just simply drag. So for example, if you prefer work from home least and hybrid option the most, you will just reorder them based on how you prefer to work. Okay, now we'll answer these. I feel most productive at home. You might be neutral. And then you really prefer to work in a hybrid environment. Okay, and then you are extremely likely to recommend OSU to a friend or colleague. We'll hit next. Here you'll go ahead and upload your documents. So I'm just going to grab some random documents from my device here. This one is looking specifically for an Excel document. So it is only going to show me Excel documents on my device here. So let me grab something here. We'll grab this one. And I technically could upload another document here. And we'll hit submit. Okay. Now I'm actually going to go back through this and I'm going to do one more. And I'm going to change the responses on some of them so that you can see how it creates the data and distinguishes it. So instead of fall, I'm going to choose summer. I'm going to give a 4. I'm going to choose, to yesterday. I'm going to say, no, I don't enjoy working here. For why not, we'll just say, not sure. I'm going to say, I prefer to work at home. I prefer to work at the office least. I'll say I feel most productive at home, and I strongly disagree to hybrid work. I recommend this company a 4, and I'll go ahead and upload my work from home form since that seems to be what I prefer here. And then we'll upload another Excel document. And then we're actually, believe it or not, going to do it one more time. I'm just trying to get, a good amount of data to show you guys. So we'll say, John Plants. We're just making up stuff. Winter, we'll say 8. We'll say today's date as well. Yes, we enjoy working here. It's great. We'll say, we'll have this ranking be the same. We'll say we agree and we disagree, or give a 9. Then we won't upload any files for that because I don't believe we've made them required. All right, so we've got 3 survey responses, as you can see here. It tells you the average amount of time that it took to complete this response. It breaks up each question. So we see for the first question, these are the responses. Obviously, because we asked for names, it's recording names, but whatever the question was, it will record that based on the type of question it was. So it was a text-based question. So we have the text there. It gives you the actual percentage score. So we do have basically a even split. So of all the responses, we have 1 for fall, 1 for winter, 1 for summer. Gives you a visual pie diagram. So that works out to be exactly 33%. So of all the responses, it's pretty even. This company is getting an average rating of, this person or employees are rating themselves an average of 7.33% performance. Company might have some type of, measurement for what they think is successful or not, but they can gather that information from here. The dates that the surveys are being completed. And then we're seeing that 67% of the people that took this survey do enjoy working here. And we can see exactly how many people responded to each. More details on why they may not like working here. For the ranking, we see that the first choice, so it does have a little key for you. The first choice is that most people who took this survey prefer to work from home, 66.7%, and 33% prefer this as their last option. So most people want as a first priority to work home, and 32% of them said it is their last option. For hybrid work, 33% of people made it their first choice, while the other 67%, it was only their second choice. And then for at the office, only 33% of people actually want to go back to the office. And, or sorry, let's see, this is actually the same thing. Oh, okay, and then these same people made at the office their last choice. That's actually very confusing. I'm not sure why it says that, but this is basically how the ranking works out. So for the people who chose to work from home, their third choice was likely going to be at the office. For the people who chose to be hybrid first, their second choice is likely going to be I think the gray is hybrid. So then we have also our Likert. So again, it gives you percentage scores on whether people strongly agree or disagree with those things and the percentage of the people that took the survey. This is the Net Promoter Score. So are people likely to recommend you? Here are those files, so on and so forth. Now, if we go to view results, because I did collect the responders' details, even though I put different names here, I'm actually the person, this Windows account or Office account is the person who was taking all the surveys. So you're going to see Alex Wilbur as every single respondent here. And it's going to tell you how long it took each respondent to answer. And if I click on these ellipses, I can print that respondent's response and, turn that in somewhere or say, see, this person responded this way. This was their consent form. This was the agreement. This was the contract that they signed, whatever. I can print out their responses here. And I can go through and see each individual person. If I had set it up anonymously, it would just say anonymous. It would still show me and allow me to print this out, but it wouldn't identify who actually took the survey. But because I used the same person, they're all going to say Alex Wilbur, and we'll just pretend that this is actually the person who answered the survey. Okay. Have a few questions. Is the form given an automatic name when saved? No, you need to actually create a name. So in the beginning, it's just going to say untitled until you give it a name. I would make it a habit of naming it right away, because when it says untitled and you keep having them all untitled, you're going to get confused, like which one is which. So name it right away. Who can see the data? How can you share it with someone? So like I went over a second ago, you're the owner, so you can only see the data unless you share it, a collaborative link with someone. So when you hit share, where it says share to collaborate, the people that you add here can access this to see the data. Okay, so only when you share to collaborate can those other people see the data. Otherwise, you are the only person that can see the data. If you want the whole team to be able to see the data, go ahead and type in your team name here, and that will attach them, and they will all have access to see the responses and print and do all that same stuff here with the form. Okay. If you want to add that to Teams, all you need to do is go to Teams, add the form as a tab, and it is embedded. So maybe you need to create a form because you want to create some type of automatic, you want to have approval. Maybe you want to get approval submitted for something, or whatever you want to use the form for. All you need to do is go into Teams, embed it as a link, or sorry, as the Forms tab, or as a link. If you want to share it in a chat, you want to just come here. You want to collect responses, copy the response link, throw it in a chat message, a channel, whatever. Here where it says new conversation, you can go ahead and copy that link here. And then people can take the form. Pretty simple and straightforward. Any questions about that before we move on to list? List doesn't take nearly as long as forms, so that's why we're kind of wrapping it up in the last 20 minutes here. Can a back button be added in case the respondent wants to change an answer? If your form is one page, no back button is necessary. If you already have 2 sections, the back button will already be there. So if I hit preview here and I say, Just adding names here. I have to, because I made all the questions required, I have to answer them to get to the second page. So let me go ahead and answer this. So I hit next. Oh, wait, did I skip a question? Oh. So, I mean, we'll say this is ranked the way that I want it. We'll hit next. As you can see, once I get to the second page, I'm now on page 2 of 2. I have a back button here. If you don't have more than one section and you didn't create another section, you don't need a back button. You can just scroll up and down. Now, I don't think there is a back to top button. I think that would be a useful feature to add, a back to top, so that you don't have to like go all the way, scroll. If someone did make this a super long form on accident, or maybe they didn't realize they could create sections, I think it would be helpful to have a back to top button, but I don't believe this has that. Can you discuss get a link to duplicate to make a template? What features do or do not remain in the template? Okay, yeah, so I can go over that again. Let me go back to this. So as a template, everything goes over. However, whatever they change will not affect yours. So when you say get a link to a duplicate, you copy that, you give that to the person. It's set automatically to anyone with the link can duplicate it. However, if they go and change this from OSU Forms to, so like, for example, let me paste this link here. Pasting this duplicate link. It lets you know, duplicate this form to use it as your own. So when I hit duplicate it, it's letting me know that this is a copy. And now I can change this from OSU Forms Training to OSU List, which we really need to get to, by the way. And then I can add a new question, or maybe I don't want this. I want mine to be anonymous. So I'm going to get rid of this question here. And I want to change this theme to this neutral background. So we'll say OSU List. And I can change all this stuff. So now this form is completely different from this one. So even if I were to refresh this, nothing on this changed here. This is now its own form. This is its own form, but I use this link to not have to rebuild that whole thing again. Hopefully that explained it for you. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to list. We've covered everything that we need to cover with forms for the time being. I want to get us into list really quickly. It doesn't take very long, so we'll get through that. I'm going to switch my screen for just a second here. And let's switch back to my PowerPoint. So we're going to talk about getting started with lists, building one from scratch, and building one from a template. It actually is probably one of our quickest apps to use. I love lists. I use it all the time. especially to create like customer, I kind of use it as my own little CRM. We'll talk about what list is. If you are familiar with SharePoint List, this is actually the same thing, except List now is its own independent app, and there will be a mobile app coming out for it soon. But you can use lists to track information. So they're really simple to use. You can create easy to share and accessible like lists of, it could be products, it could be contact details, it can be customers. You got to think of this like an Excel sheet, but less complex and for logging information or detailed information. You're able to use it across multiple devices. And like I said, there is going to be a full mobile app coming soon. You are able to integrate them with things like Power Apps and Power Automate. And they're nice because they sync without you having to actually, they save everything, especially when you automate it. You're able to automatically upload information without having to go and physically put it in the list. So for example, the form that we just built, let's say you made a form that has a person's first name, last name, phone number, and address. You can automate that to automatically populate that information into a list so that you don't have to actually go through the forms and search through the responses to find that person's response and then print out the form. You don't have to actually do that. You can automate it to show up in the list. So a SharePoint list is essentially literally a list. You're creating a list that might have customer information, it might have product information. You might be using it for inventory tracking or even to keep up with digital assets. So maybe you have a company, you have several people with company devices. You might store that device's ID, who owns the device, what type of device it is, what position or role, what are the specs on that device. So you can use SharePoint lists to store that kind of information. So we'll kind of go through that quickly here. Really easy to edit. So you can edit in bulk. You can export them to Excel. You can upload from Excel. Maybe you have existing data that you're already working with. You can bring that in with an Excel document. You can also add conditional formatting. So this is a little bit more advanced, so we won't talk about this today, but if you're familiar with Excel, there are going to be a lot of similarities between the two. And one of those is conditional formatting. So for example, if something is it has the status of approved, you might want it to automatically change to green. Or if something is past its due date, you might want to have it automatically change to red. So you can apply a conditional formatting by creating rules similar to what you do in Excel. Again, that's going to be more advanced than what we're going to cover today, but it is functionality that is there. Speaking of rules, you can create rules and say, when a new item is added to the list, send an email to so-and-so so that that person can be notified that there has been updated information. Or if this list item gets modified, so for example, you have an inventory or an asset item out there, someone has a device, a company device, and they no longer have that device, or their device has been replaced, and you come into this list and you change the ID tag on that device, you can have it set to notify someone that that information has been updated or changed. So these are very useful things that you can use to make your list really automated, powerful, useful. And I know that if you've never used lists, a lot of this may not make a lot of sense to you, but we're going to actually walk through that really quickly so that you can see what that means. Okay. You also can share this list across your organization. So if you want to have it available to your team's group so that they can automatically up or add items or manage the details in that list, you can do that. Or you can have it as just your own personal list where you store your own information. So for example, I have one where I store all of my customers' information. And I can share that with other people in my org if I want to, but it's not completely necessary to. And there are a couple of different views that you can have with a list. You can have the actual list view where things are in a line item, or you can have a grid view, which you can see here on the right. You can have a preview of, an image. So for example, this one's kind of, I think, using like an inventory or asset tracking. You can see the image of the item that you're tracking and then a little bit of information on the front of the card. And then you also have a calendar view. So you can make even a content calendar with this list tool. So if you've been using SharePoint List for a while, this is actually kind of like a significant upgrade to what it used to be. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I think this is a little bit better to be shown than to be explained because it is a little bit more complex to explain. How do you create a list of names to communicate with anytime you want to send an email? Thanks for the information. It'll be helpful in the future. Okay, so let's dive into here and see if we can build something out for you. So something that kind of answers that question. So when you create a new list or when you get to list, you're going to come to this view here. You get to it the same way the other apps, go to portal.office. List is going to be this rainbow icon here. If you don't see it here, check all your apps. It'll be there. If you don't see lists, let your IT department know. That's usually has something to do on their end, but lists should be available to everyone in your organization. These are going to be lists that I've favorited. So I've built them during previous trainings. This one was actually from this morning. And then these are recent lists that I've interacted with. It will tell you the last time you have worked with them. So I've been doing a few list training over the past week. So pretty simple here, not much that is complicated. I can look at lists that are specifically mine, meaning I made them. And then recent lists. These are lists that belong to teams that I belong to. So I'm going to hit new list. You'll see here you can create a list from blank, from an existing Excel document, or from an existing list. So if I wanted to actually grab, let's say I go to this team and I want to grab this list, I can use that as a template and build a list based off of that. However, I want to do one from blank today, but we do have tons of templates for you to choose from. So for example, if you want to create an issue tracker, it shows an example of what the one they've pre-built looks like. So you've got the issue, a description of the issue, the priority, the status, so on and so forth. If you use this template, it will not import this information. It's only going to import the column headers to kind of save you time if you know you're trying to create something similar. Employee onboarding tracker. So this is something that the employee has to create or has to complete as they complete their onboarding process. So for example, you would send. Yes.
Sorry, people are having trouble seeing it. It looks like it's stuck on your PowerPoint.
Okay, let me go back. Sorry about that. I forgot to switch my screen. That would be my fault. Let me just check again. Okay, yeah, it looks like that's all everyone's saying. So let me go back here real quick. So again, to get to list, you want to go to portal.office.com. You'll see it here in your Office app launcher. It's going to be this rainbow colored here. You'll come to this page. These are my favorites. So these are lists that I use and I favorited them so that they appear pinned to the top. Any recent list I work with will live here at the bottom. Yes.
It looks like people can't see what you're doing.
Okay. I did switch my screen. I know Alex just mentioned that. I'm not
Yeah,
seeing
no,
where
I
it's
can see it now, Bree.
Okay. Yeah, I got an email too, so I just wanted to make certain.
Okay, okay. Feel free to let me know in the chat if you guys can see it now. A person says, I'm not seeing what she's referencing. My screen is showing a slide that says, okay, so that might have came through right as I was switching. Let me know in the Q&A if you guys can see it now. I'm showing it in my window that it is visible.
Yeah, you can see it, Bree. I think she just got the email after that.
Okay, perfect. So here you have your recent list. These are, if you look down here, it shows you the last time you interacted with those. These are not all lists that I've created. This is the only one that I've created. And this is just a copy of that. These belong to other teams that I'm a member of that someone else created, but I have access to because they gave me access to it as a team member. But if I want to see just my list, I'll click where it says recent list and switch it to my list, and I'll see this one. If I want to favorite that, I'll click the star and now it will be pinned to the top. But we want to actually go ahead and create a new list. You can create a new list from blank, from an Excel document, or an existing list. So for example, if I wanted to go to another team and I wanted to use their demo list that they created on 7/21, I could grab that and use it as a template, and it will bring everything over from that, except for the actual data, just the column headers, and then I can start from that list. We're going to use one from blank, but we also have templates here. So if I wanted to use, I know I want to make an issue tracker, I can use this as a starting point. So it has the issue, the description of the issue, the priority. I know I want those details. So if I use it as a template, it will bring over all these column headers. Again, it's not going to bring over this information, just the headers, because this information is just like demo info. You don't want that, but you do want these headers to kind of save you time. Employee onboarding. So like I was mentioning before, this is like a list that an employee has to complete themselves as they go through their onboarding process. So you would maybe send a link to this, and then as they complete these tasks, they would come here and update it. So for example, did the employee sign their offer letter? It gives a description of what they need to do. So please send your digital offer letter before joining. A hard copy will be mailed to you, so on and so forth. Complete before joining. So it gives the time frame in which they need to have this completed. They can come and check off that they have completed it, what day, who mentored them. Here's the link to their offer letter that they need to sign in the first place. So this is something that you can use. So you have all kinds of templates that you can use to start with. Okay, let's go ahead and add one from blank. And I'm going to just make this real basic and simple. OSU list. We'll go ahead and make that blue. We'll make this checklist. Now, if you save it to your list, you're the sole owner and only you can access it. You're going to have to go and one by one or individually add access if you want other people to have it. If you know you're going to be making this list available to a whole team, then you can go ahead and select the team that you want this list to be associated with. We're just going to choose this Mark 8 project team. And we are close on time just because we did have a lot of questions from the last session. I'll keep going a few minutes over. For those of you that can stay, please feel free to hang out. For those of you that cannot, this session is recorded and will be available on demand. So as soon as this session is over, you can instantly, you can click the same button that you use, or sorry, the same link that you use to join this training, and it will instantly play the playback. You can skip to the end of this to see this portion that you may have had to miss by hopping off. Okay, so we've got a blank list here. This is always going to say title by default. Even when you change the name, in the background, or like sort of in the underlying code of it all, it is still going to say title. So that's one thing to keep in mind, because if you were go and try to connect this to like Power Automate, you might see a field that says title, even though you've renamed it, let's say, to a customer name. It's still going to say title in the underlying code of it all. However, the other ones will say whatever you actually changed them to. So I just like to throw that disclaimer out there. So this one will always be a single line of text as well, by the way. You can't change the type. It's always going to be text based. You can rearrange them. So maybe you don't want this one. Let's add another column really quickly. We'll add a yes or no. To customer. You can rearrange this if you don't want your first field to be text-based. Maybe you want it to be a picture or something like that. But that first one is always going to say title. So, or always going to be a single line of text, sort of title-based thing. So we saw here, you got a couple of different types of questions that you can, not questions, but columns that you can add. So we had a single line of text. If you want multiple line of text, so we'll say this is notes. Now, if you click on these extended options, you can enable rich text formatting, which will allow you to include pictures and hyperlinks and all that other stuff. You can also make this column required, so you can't finish the field unless this part is answered. So we'll go ahead and leave that off for now. So we've got some customer notes. Location. This is actually going to pull geographical information. I like to use this or leave this as titled as location, but you might want to make it say, you know, city, or where is the business located? So we'll say business location. Now you also can create additional columns that are attached to location, like city, street address, so on and so forth. And then you can also make this required. I'm going to just leave, actually, we won't add these because we don't really want these extra columns. But if you did, you could add these, and what you'll actually see happen, and I'll show you really quickly, is it's going to add additional columns for those. But we don't actually need those. So we are going to go back to this one, edit this, and we're going to get rid of those. And we'll just have business location. Not going to create a column for all of these just because a lot of them are self-explanatory. So for example, date and time, a hyperlink, an image file. Now, some of the cool ones are like a person. So let's say you want to say account owner. So who owns this customer that you're putting in? So is this a lead? Is this someone who's the last person that reached out to the customer? Whatever information you want to put, and it can be a person. So you'll toggle on show profile photos, and then you can actually tag people from your organization. So we'll go through that here in a second. Multiple choice. So you can say what industry. So industry. We can say they're in manufacturing. Now, this obviously doesn't apply to your industry. You might have like patient type or something like that. But we'll say retail, and then we'll say technology. Okay, you can change the colors of these. You can, of course, add more options. Okay, Now, if you click on the extended options for this, you can choose to have this be a drop-down menu or radio button choice. Doesn't really matter. You can also allow multiple selections, and you can also make this required, which we won't do that for now. And everything else will kind of just, like I said, they're self-explanatory. Number, it just means it's looking for a number value only, a 1, a 2, a 3, whatever. Hyperlink, maybe you need to link to this customer's website or even this form. So maybe we want to link to their form response. You can do that as well. Maybe you want to hide this column. You can do that. More is going to have some more complex options behind it. We won't talk about this today, but if you want to do some of that conditional formatting, if you want to have certain columns do calculations, you want to come back here and choose those, and you have to actually build them back here for those columns. So we won't, like I said, talk about that today. So let's just quickly go ahead, and now that we've got our headers, let's say we want to actually input this information into our form or into our list. So we're going to click new, and then we can fill out this information. So I can say this customer is Jane Doe. She's a new customer, or maybe she's not. If you click yes, it's going to show a check mark. If not, it's going to show that it's blank. For customer notes, because we turned on rich text formatting, we're going to want to click on the pencil, and we can say Jane is a great new customer. She was a lead from our new accounts team. Made up information. Of course, with the rich text formatting, you have the ability to upload images or a hyperlink, so on and so forth. We're not going to add that for right now. Her location, she's going to be in Columbus, Ohio. So because I have that turned on, I can actually search, I can put in her business address, but we're just going to leave it as Columbus, Ohio right now. Account owner, I can tag anyone in my organization. So maybe Adele is the person who actually found this customer or made the contact. This is going to be her relationship to manage. I'm going to add her, and I'm going to choose the industry that this customer is in from the drop-down menu. So Jane Doe is in manufacturing. And we will save that information. And now that info is logged. So we'll create another person. She's not a new customer. We'll say long time client wants to her business location. We'll put her in Cleveland, Ohio. Again, you can type in an exact address if you have one. We'll say Isaiah owns this account. She's in the retail industry. So as you can see, her info is a little bit different. And then we'll say Mark Thompson, he's a new customer. We'll say no details. Maybe we haven't reached out to him yet. We'll say he's located in Cincinnati. We'll just choose one of these addresses. Oh, he's at the zoo. And we'll say this is Megan. He's in the technology industry. So we've got 3 customers in our list. If I come up here to all items, maybe I prefer to view this in the gallery view. I actually do prefer this because it's easier to look at, and it actually gives me all that information right on the front of this card without having to read all the way across. it is only going to show like the first 5 or 6 fields. And then if we would have had more line items, we would have had to click on it to see the full like details. But since we only have a few columns here, it's able to fit everything right here on the card. Maybe I want to go and up here and update Adele, and I want to say at Adele, I spoke with this customer. They said thanks for everything. Because this list is associated with our team, I have access to it. I can communicate. I can put updated details in here for my team. They can know what the status is of, whatever information I decided to store here. It might not be customer related. It might be device related, or not device, but product related. So I might be saying this product is delayed until spring. This is not happening with this. Here's an update on this. We can all leave comments to each other for this particular line item. Okay. So I'll take some time to answer some questions. I know we're, really right over time. I see we're still getting questions about forms. Is forms the same as a poll inserted in the Outlook email? Yes and no. That poll uses forms. It's just using forms in a reduced capacity. They're using the same app, but they don't necessarily communicate with each other. Like, same thing I said for like the Teams portion. If you're trying to use a form in a meeting, it is going to be specific to that meeting, and it is going to live in that meeting, and you're not going to be able to use existing forms. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay. Yeah, I see we're still getting a lot of questions about forms. I'm going to try to wrap up this list portion really quickly. You can, for example, let's say you want this to be in this card view every time you come to look at it. You can create a new view here. Oops. You can create a new view here. And we'll call this customer card view. And I want this to be a gallery instead of a list. So now I've created a new view, and then I can set this current view as default. So every time I come to this list, it will look like this instead of like this, if that's the way that you prefer it. If you click on the ellipses here, you can share this specific line item. So maybe you're not trying to share the whole list, but you want to share this customer's contact information or card. You can see who it's already being shared with. So it's already being shared with these people because they're a part of the team. But maybe I want to share it with someone who's outside of this, then I can do that. I can copy a link to it. So instead of actually sending them an email or whatever, I can just copy the link and send it to them in Teams. I can comment, which we just saw. I can manage access, so I can remove people's access to this. So maybe I don't want Grady to be able to edit it, but I want him to only be able to view it. Or I want to stop sharing access with him altogether. He will lose access to that customer's information. I can automate this, so I can create a new rule that says every time this column changes, I want to be emailed. I want so-and-so to receive an email. So I'll choose a column. So every time a new column is changed, I want myself to receive an email, or maybe just the person who actually modified it, or the person who's listed as the account owner, which would be Adele. So when you automate those, you are able to create rules, and then you can come here and manage those and change that information. I can also see the version history, so I can see what changes were made, who made them. We haven't made any new ones yet, but I would be able to see that once that information is collected. Alert me. So I can actually set up daily alerts. So maybe I want to be alerted by text message. Oh, wait, let's see. It might not let me do this because this is not, this is a group list, but let's say I want to be alerted by email, then email anytime anything changes, or maybe only when someone else besides me changes the item, or all the items created by me if there are changes to it, or if they're just modified, I can have it send that to me immediately as it happens, maybe only once a day or once a week. I can choose to have alerts on this item. Okay, so overall, list is pretty simple, pretty easy to do. If I had time, I would show you how to connect this to Power Automate. I would show you how to make this form, put this exact information into a list, but we don't actually have time for that today. However, if you need to export this data, just like column headers in Excel, you just export it as a CSV file and you will have this in Excel. I use this for mail merging all the time. If I need to mail merge to all my customers, I use this. I don't have to do any extra work, and I use this for mail merge. Okay. If you want to integrate these into Power Apps, you'll choose integrate, you'll select Power App, select create an app or customize forms, and then you'll be able to connect these to those things and have it automatically build that out for you. Oops, let me go back here. We don't want that. But we are pretty much out of time. We're actually way over. Can you show how to add a list to a Teams from within Teams? For instance, the team is created after the form is created. Yeah, so if you want to add this to Teams, you'll go to Teams. And it'll take a second to load here. I know we're like way over time today. So to add a list of teams, you first need to make sure that the list that you are adding, that team has access to. So when I created this list, I attached it to the Mark 8 project team. If I were to try to add this to this OSU Teams 100, most people, unless they are a part of both groups, would not have access to the list. It wouldn't work for them because I didn't grant permission. So I would need to make sure that they have permission to that. So we'll go with this one since I know that I created it specifically for this team. I'll click on the tab option here. I'm going to choose list. If it doesn't show up right here at the top, we'll just search it here, but it happens to be right here. So we'll click on that. It's going to install list into this team or this channel. And then I will choose from an existing list. So give this a second to load here. It has installed the app for me. Now I want to add an existing list. These are the lists that are available to this team. We want this one that we just made. And now that list lives right here in our channel. Okay, so we can create new items here. We can do all that stuff. The only thing we can't do is edit some of the fields. You need to go to the actual list app for that. But as far as just adding new items, we can do that right here from Teams now. Okay, now if I wanted to make this same list available to another team without having to basically recreate it, I would click on the ellipses here. Actually, let's favorite that. Go back. Oh, wait, no, that's not what I want to do. I will create a new list. As long as you own the list, you can create a duplicate from it. From existing list, I would go to that team and I would say OSU list and hit next. And then I would assign it to a new team. So for example, I'm going to share it to, we'll just say this retail team. I change the name, OSU list for retail, change whatever else. And now I've created that same list setup, but it just belongs to a different group of people now. So you'll see once it finishes loading. All of my column headers and all that should transfer over. It's just taking a second. Oh, well, it wasn't in list view, so there you go. So all of that, and now I can create new items, but it just belongs to a completely different group of people now, but it's the same setup, if that makes sense. Okay. So let's go ahead and wrap this. I didn't expect there to be this many questions, but I really love it because that means you guys were engaged and you learned a lot today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this training. If we need to do another list training, a list only training, we can do that because I know that obviously, you know, we went through this probably a little bit quicker due to all the questions from the forms section. But with that being said, we do have a survey that you can take here at the end, or you can take now if you'd like to by scanning the QR code or visiting this link here. I'm going to go ahead and post this link in the Q&A for you. Again, 9s and 10s means we did a great job and it gets us credit for the training. We do ask if you leave less than an 8, please provide us some feedback on why. I want to stress that this is not a survey for OSU specific questions, or if you had technical difficulties on your end, or if your organization has blocked a feature for you or something like that. This is not the survey for that. This actually evaluates me specifically as the trainer and the content that we reviewed today. So I'm posting the link to that right here in the Q&A. And it just popped in. And the anonymous person said, would like to see another more detailed list training. Yes, I agree. I think if we do another list training by itself, we can get into some more detailed aspects of it, such as connecting it to Power Automate, or maybe some of that, even that conditional formatting. So that's a good suggestion. And then another person said, so the list template is shared with the new team, but not the data. Correct. So the data is never going to be shared. When you use a template, it's never going to take the data with it. The template is for you to use the column headers so that you don't have to reset up the list formatting every time you want to use it elsewhere. But the data belongs to the people that actually created that data, and it does not allow you to bring all of the data over and share it. Otherwise, if that group of people needs to have access to the same data, then all you need to do is just share access to that list rather than using a template and bringing the data over. Because what will happen is, what if they don't need that data? Now they have to take time to go back and delete all this useless information that doesn't pertain to them. And that can be really, really time consuming if you have hundreds of lines of list items. If you stored hundreds of customers and those aren't their customers, they just want the headers. They don't want your customer information. If you need to share your customer information with them, then share access to your existing list. That way they can see that same info, or export it as an Excel CSV file and send them the data that way. So hopefully that explains things for you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up this training. Thank you guys so much for coming out today. My name is Bree, and until next time, thank you.